Dead by Daylight has seen its fair share of balancing changes, and two killers that nearly follow the same path are Freddy Krueger the Nightmare and the Knight. Both brought new aspects to the game, but as time went on, they were nerfed. Not because they were overly powerful, but because newer survivors didn't know how to deal with them. Today we're going to talk about how the Knight almost followed Freddy's fate, but didn't. Let's start with Freddy. Back when he was released, he was nothing like what we see today. No gen teleports, no snares to slow survivors, and no fake pallets. It was just marking a survivor, waiting 7 seconds to make the survivor fall asleep, and that would give you the chance to finally hit them, while also giving them a 50% slowdown to all actions while in the dream world. And I think you can see the problem with that. How many times would you need to make a survivor fall asleep during a match? And how long would that take? Well, if it was a max hook game at 12 hooks, and the killer spread the hooks evenly, it would take 84 seconds, or a little over 1 gen, not even counting the chase time, the time it would take to get 2 hits, or any other factor. This instantly gave him the title as one of the weakest killers. Survivors had simple counters. If you failed the skill check, you could wake up in the dream world and avoid his abilities altogether, so you could never get hit, delaying the hook stages and pressure even more. Combine this with self-care and you have the chance to fail a skill check anywhere and anytime, and in turn not give Freddy the chance to even hit you. Or, just find a teammate to wake you up. Freddy was often seen as a pushover by players who knew what they were doing, or who slightly knew how to counter him. 2 weeks later, Freddy got nerfed. Yes, even with the easy to counter ability, he got nerfed because newer survivors and casual players, or just survivors in general who didn't know how to easily counter him and got annoyed because of the 50% slowdown to all actions, and without knowing how to wake up, caused a bit of problems for those less aware survivors. So those nerfs weren't because higher ranked players couldn't deal with him, it was because newer players struggled against him, making it a frustrating and annoying experience for survivors. Now let's talk the Knight. Upon his release, the Knight brought something new with his ability. Like the dream world for Freddy, the Knight was able to summon guards, placing pressure on loops in certain areas of the map, giving him the title of the best zoning killer. Throughout Knight's lifespan in Dead by Daylight, he has had constant bugs, some so bad he had to get kill switched. But another issue was the guard AI, and I'll let one of the best Dead by Daylight creators out there to explain.
And then you can also send out guards in the distance to harass gens, to maybe get a survivor busy, force them to waste time. The guards aren't like insane or anything. A survivor can run into the flag that they spawn, the little banner, and make them disappear. There's also a few tricks that are really easy to use, and if survivors ever learn to do them consistently, you're really gonna suffer. Survivors that go into a window or a drop pallet will modify the AI of the guard. Normally, a guard would go in a straight line towards the survivor, and if the survivor goes to the side, the guard would go up and follow them. But if a survivor touches with their body a window, the guard will not follow the survivor in a straight line. They'll first go to the window and then follow the survivor. So there's a lot of tricks that you can do to make guards literally never catch you. One thing that is going to become extremely obvious is that detecting people with your guards is very difficult. A survivor running away at normal speed, unless you manage to absolutely pinpoint their precise location and snipe the spot ahead of them, they will never get caught by a guard, especially if it's not the jailer. This killer is so difficult to play in any fun way, because anytime you try to catch a survivor from afar, even if you are 99% of the way there, even if you're very accurate, you're still not getting the hunt to begin. The survivors just outdistance it. So it feels really, really, really bad that this killer is so add-on dependent. There's also the issue that some of his green and purple add-ons are a joke. They are a joke. Some of them got buffed since the last tier list, and I'm not even going to talk about them because the buffs are absolutely inconsequential. Some of the buffs actually make the add-ons worse, which is unbelievable to say.
The Knight's power had a simple counter: run away from the loop or area where the guard was summoned, which for newer players who tried to play around a certain area got caught into the Knight's trap, causing the guard to lock onto them, almost guaranteeing a hit. The Knight had decent map pressure and slowdown, but just like Freddy, players who knew how to counter him quickly figured out how to escape his guards, nullifying his power. Just like Freddy, the Knight received a series of nerfs, but instead of 2 weeks, it took a little less than 2 years to make significant changes. Granted, some of the time, the Knight was kill switched because of his bugs. The Knight by the community was known for giving a frustrating and annoying experience for survivors. Sounds familiar, right? The new update introduced a shared cooldown for all guards, which changed a lot and not in a good way. Previously, you could use the Carnifex to break a pallet and with a short cooldown immediately follow up with an assassin to keep pressure on the survivor. Now, not so much. much. That shared cooldown means you're stuck waiting, and in a game where seconds count, that's a big deal. Think about it this way. It's like telling a hillbilly he can't rev his chainsaw right after breaking a pallet. Or telling a nurse she can't blink over a pallet to catch up with a survivor because it's putting too much pressure on the survivor. These restrictions would ultimately kill their momentum, and that's exactly what's happening to the knight. Now you might be saying, but you can just wait for the cooldown and spawn the guard at your feet, not a big deal. Well, this is where my next point comes in place. The update also added a requirement for guards to travel 10 meters before they can actually be deployed. This change might seem minor, and I've heard that it's just a higher skill ceiling, and it takes a little bit more skill to actually play the knight now. Well, you can say that about any nerf. You can say that about Freddy too. It just takes more skill to play him after the series of nerfs. But it's a big deal for those who know how to counter the knight, or if you're an inside map or a small room, because you would end up doing laps in the room to get a survivor, and chances are they're already gone by the time the guard spawns. Before, if you were facing a knight who could insta-spawn guards, if the cooldown is clear of course, and you knew how to counter him, which was just leaving the loop you were at, and that took pressure off you itself, now survivors get an extra 10 meters to work with, which can make all the difference in a chase. Essentially, if you know how to counter knight before, this update just made it easier. Run away from the loop, create some distance, and you've essentially nullified the knight's pressure. It feels like the developers tried to balance things out, but ended up tipping scales too far in the favor of survivors, which is a common trend for Dead by Daylight in my opinion, which I know it's a heated opinion as well. Now you might say, then just have the guard follow the sounds of the survivor. Okay.
Unless you manage to absolutely pinpoint their precise location and snipe the spot ahead of them, they will never get caught by a guard.
Let's say that works 100% of the time and the survivor's injured because you can't hear them while they aren't injured. That is still a few seconds of extra time the survivor gets to run away from the knight. One of the main uses of a knight is to close off loops and zone. There's a reason he is called the best zoning killer, but even the main use of the knight is nerfed. Now if you get too close to a guard, their hunt timer goes down by 3 times, meaning the Carnifex will disappear in 4 seconds, the Jailer in 8, and the Assassin in also 4, meaning you'll have a near impossible chance to ever get a double hit down with the knight, which was one of the most satisfying experiences you could have as a killer in general. When I first started playing knight, which wasn't that long ago, it was only maybe 2 months ago, I really loved those double hits. I didn't get them often, and there's only certain situations where you could get them, but when you got them, they're really satisfying, and I think every knight, every person who played knight in general, I think would find that very satisfying. But now with this, in my opinion, very severe nerf to that, I wouldn't expect many double hits. Especially if the Assassin who's the best chance at catching up to a survivor, they will disappear in 4 seconds, with their base time being 12 seconds. So just like Freddy, his abilities were toned down because newer survivors and casual players didn't understand how to counter his mechanics. Things like when to run or how to avoid getting cornered by the guards. These nerfs aim to make him less overwhelming for newer players, but also lower his potential at higher levels. But unlike Freddy, the knight didn't stay in this nerf state for long. The devs realized they'd gone too far with his nerfs, and soon after, in the Castlevania update, they buffed him again. His powers actually feel good again. The guards no longer have shelled cooldowns, and you can spawn a guard while another one is already spawned to use your power in a way which you couldn't before the nerfs. Now the knight again feels good to play, even if the way you play him is now changed because of the small cooldowns and insta spawns to swappable guards and larger cooldowns, among other things. He may still be difficult for newer players and casual players, but if we take what newer and inexperienced players say as truth, we really need to nerf the pig again. But in all seriousness, if we take what newer and inexperienced players say as absolute truth, then we need to really nerf every high tier killer like the Nurse, Blight, Hillbilly, Huntress, every killer. But honestly, this buff saved the knight from following Freddy's path of being nerfed into an even worse killer, giving him the chance to stay competitive across all skill levels. And yes, I know these are 2 far different experiences, the core behind them was still the same. New players didn't know how to deal with them, thinking of them as annoying, causing them to get nerfed. So while both Freddy and the knight faced similar challenges in the core where higher ranked survivors had simple solutions while newer players struggled, only the knight escaped the fate of being permanently weakened, ensuring that he remains a viable option for both new and experienced players alike. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think of the video, and just in general, just tell me what you think of the Night update. Whether you think the original version was better, the nerf version was better, or this new mixed version. And I'll see you guys next time.